Erev Tov and Chag Sameach. Tonight we are going to celebrate Simchat Torah with a program that Matthew and I have collaborated in offering, and which we're calling Releasing Control, Receiving Blessing. It's our thought that the new year that's upon us is one during which it's going to behoove us to discover a life of wonder by embracing uncertainty. And this is the lens through which we're going to look at and read from the end of Devarim and then circle back to the very beginning of God's creative project in Bereshit. But first, let's join in commemorating ancestors and loved ones now residing on the other side, under wings of Shekhinah, gathering them to our hearts as we renew our engagement in Torah. I'm going to light a Yizkor candle, and I don't know if those of you at home have candles, but you could light now or you could light later. B'Shem Hashem Eloha Yisrael Mimini Michael Umismoli Gavriel Umilfanai Uriel Umeachorai Raphael Ve'al Roshi Shechinat El Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 Yai Lai 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 In the name of God, God of Israel. On my right, Michael, and on my left, Gabriel. Before me, Uriel, behind me, Raphael, and over my head, surrounding me, Shekhinat El. Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai Lai 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 Lai. Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai Lai 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 Lai. Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai Lai 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 Lai. Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai Lai 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 Lai. Shepherds in the time of the Bible kept track of their flock, counting off each sheep as it went out to pasture by placing a pebble, one for each sheep or goat, into a small sack called a tzror, meaning bundle. As the sheep returned at the end of the day, they were counted off again, a pebble for each returning sheep, transferred to a second small sack, referred to as the tzror hachayim, the bundle of the living. If this phrase is familiar to you, tzror hachayim, you might recognize it from the El Malei Rachamim, which we will pray in a few minutes. We petition on behalf of loved ones who've passed on. Ana Ba'al Harachamim, please, compassionate one, protect them under the cover of your wings forever. Utzror b'tzror hachayim et nishmotehem, and bind their souls into the bundle of life. We mean eternal life. But we also pray for those no longer with us in this life, that they'll remain vital and vibrant and forever alive in our memories. So I offer you the image of the ancient shepherd's bundle of the living, each member of his flock counted and noticed and signified by the talisman of a small stone kept in the pocket. Our loved ones lost have returned to the bundle of their maker, but they remain alive for us, always in our pockets, as it were, where we can reach in privately and touch, incorporating them into any given moment. May we count them b'tzror hachayim, in the bundle of the ever-living. And so we grapple with letting them go and keeping them alive. Individual Yizkor prayers can be found on pages 129 to 130 in the 8 Ratzon Siddur. And of course, these prayers are found in most any Siddur if you just look for the Yizkor section in your table of contents. Please take some time to yourself, and I'll bring us back together for the El Malei Rachamim. As we approach truth and reconciliation, we want to hold the souls of people we never knew who have lost their lives, people we never knew in the indigenous communities, whom we hold and really consider what responsibility we have towards them as members of the Tzror HaChaim, the bundle of life, to keep them alive in some fashion. El Malei Rachamim is on page 130. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Harakiya, Mazhirim et Nishmot Kol Ela, Shehizkarnu Hayom, Shahalchu Le'olamam. Began Eden Tehei Menuchatam, Baal Harachamim, Yastirein Beseter Knafav Le'olamim, Veyitzror Betzror HaChaim et Nishmotehem, Adonai Hu Nachalatam, Ve'anuchu Beshalom Al Mishkavam, Venomar Amen. Merciful God, grant perfect rest beneath the wings of Shekhinah to all those mentioned today who have gone to their eternal home, together with the souls of all the holy and pure, whose light shines brightly and eternally. You will keep them in the shelter of your wings forever. May their souls be bound up in the bonds of life. May they rest in peace, and may their memory ever be for a blessing. Amen. Psalm 23 is on page 131. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binos tesher yar bitzini, ame menucho tenaleini. Nafshi yeshoveh, Nafshi yeshoveh, Yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeitz al mavet, lo irara, ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha, shivtecha umishantecha, hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, neged zorerai, dishanta b'shemen roshi, dishanta b'shemen roshi, dishanta b'shemen roshi, kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed, yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, Veshavti beveit Adonai, Veshavti beveit Adonai leorach yamim. Yalalai lai lai lai, yalalai lai lai lai, yalalai lai 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 lai, lai lai la 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 lai, yalalai lai lai lai, yalalai lai lai lai, yai lai lai la la lai, yalalai lai lai lai, yalalai lai lai lai. Yalla lai 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 la 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 lai. Yalla lai 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 lai. Yalla lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 la la lai. Lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 la la lai. Yai lai la la lai. Lai lai la lai lai lai. Yai lai. Yai lai la lai lai. The Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, is on page 132. Let's all unmute. Yikadal vidkadash shemei rabba, Bialma divrach hirute, biamlich malchute, v'chayechon uvyomechon, chaye dechol beit Yisrael, bagala uvizman kariv yimru, Yehi shmei rabba borach olam v'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitala v'yitalal, v'medikudsha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechmata, v'amiran ba'alma v'imru.
Amen.
Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
Oseh shalom imamav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, al kol Yishmael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, imru. Amen. I'm going to take a moment to light candles for Simchat Torah.
Should we light?
I see that I was muted. I'm going to take a moment to light candles for Simchat Torah. If you have candles at home, please do light or just join with me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, shel yom tov.
Amen.
So here is Matthew and my Simchat Torah teaching entitled Releasing Control, Receiving Blessing. The very final portion of the Torah, read only on Simchat Torah, is called Zot HaBracha. This is the blessing. In the time-tested tradition of our sages, always looking for the relevant meaning of our holy texts, Matthew and I have asked, what is the blessing alluded to in this portion? And in the rabbinic tradition, we posit an answer for your consideration. The blessing is release of control, an encounter with the unknown. In the Torah portion we just read on Shabbat, Moses prays to see God's glory. He seeks a full-on, face-to-face revelation, no more mystery. In response, he's shown only a partial vision. He may see God's back, but not God's face. God says humankind cannot see God's face and live. We said on Shabbat that what Moses saw was God's afterglow. When Moses re-enters community after this experience, it's evident that his own countenance is aglow. And a Talmudic midrash suggests he's been illuminated not by what he sees, but by what is beyond his capacity to perceive or comprehend, what he cannot know. Another Talmudic interpretation or explanation for Moses' radiance is similar. The tablets of the law are 6 handbreadths wide. Moses grasps the tablets 2 handbreadths, while God holds on to them on God's end another 2 handbreadths. It's those 2 handbreadths left between from which Moses receives the rays of majesty. These 2 handbreadths between are a metaphor for the ungraspable mystery. The suggestion in both myths is that the degree of God's concealment forces Moses to use his own imagination to perceive what cannot be shown or grasped. He must reach deep within, as perhaps must we, to perceive spirit. From this experience of self-insight in the face of the unknown, he is illuminated. But Moses isn't a character who fully assimilates the wisdom of limits, let alone the creative opportunity, indeed the blessing, of encountering what we do not control. Moses, the powerful leader in opposition to whose controlling style the people rebel again and again, is offered the lesson of limits repeatedly. Not the least of these lessons is the consequence of his violence against the rock he struck to bring forth water, resulting in God's refusal to admit him to the Holy Land. This, even after all he had offered and sacrificed to bring the people to the banks of the Jordan River. So here we are at this very beautiful end to the narrative and the teaching of the Torah. Moses has handed off leadership. He has climbed the mountain to look over into the land he will never enter. And he faces death, the ultimate unknown, and the ultimate surrender of control. It is a beautiful passage, full of longing. And in this, it reminds me of the end of Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, which too leaves us with an unrequited love, a love not consummated, the yearning, the open possibility carrying us forward. Moses dies alone at 120 years of age, denied control of the end game, even as his eyes are undimmed and his vigor unabated. And no one knows his burial site. He is mourned, and the last verse of our Torah tells that his mourning comes to an end. There's a limit. He was a man who came and went. God gave and God took back. In this case, Midrash teaches, with a kiss. Moses dies with a kiss, and Joshua, filled with the spirit of wisdom, carries on. Let's rise in Aliyah to the final passage of Torah. The blessings can be found on page 79 in the 8 Ratzon Sidur. And please unmute to participate in the blessings. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMevorach le'olam
Baruch
va'ed.
Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah
Adonai
Adonai
Eloheinu melech
melech
ha'olam
haolam
asher
asher
bachar
bachar
banu
banu
mikol ha'amim
mi'amim
v'natan
v'natan
lanu
lanu
et
et
Torato.
Torah.
Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah
Adonai
Adonai
notein
notein
HaTorah.
Torah.
I'm going to read from Devarim 34, verses 5 through 9. Amen. Vayamat Sham Moshe Eved Adonai Be'eretz Moav Al Pi Adonai Vayikbor Oto Begai Be'eretz Moav Mul Beit Peor V'lo yada ish et kevurato ad hayom hazeh Umoshe ben me'ah ve'esrim shana b'moto lo kahata eino v'lo nas lecho vayivku b'nei Yisrael et Moshe be'arvot Moav 30 yom Vayitmu Yemei Vechi Evel Moshe Yehoshua ben Nun Malei Ruach Chochma Ki Samach Moshe Et Yadav Elav Vayishmeu Elav b'nei Yisrael vaya'asu ka'asher siva Adonai et Moshe. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, dies there in the land of Moab at the command of the Lord. He buried him in the valley in the land of Moab near Beit Peor, and no one knows his burial place to this day. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were undimmed and his vigor unabated. And the Israelites bewailed Moses in the steppes of Moab for 30 days. The period of wailing and mourning for Moses came to an end. Now Joshua ben Nun was filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid his hands upon him, and the Israelites heeded him, doing as the Lord had commanded Moses. Let's unmute for the brachot following the Aliyah, again, page 79 in our Sidurim.
Baruch atah
Baruch
Adonai,
atah
Baruch atah
Adonai, Eloheinu
Elohim
melech
melech
haolam,
haolam,
asher
asher natan
natan
lanu
Torat
Torah
emet,
emet,
v'chayei
v'chayei
olam
olam
nata
natan
b'tohenu,
b'tohenu,
Baruch atah
Baruch atah
Adonai,
Adonai,
noten
noteim
haTorah.
haTorah.
Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. Let us be strong and strengthen one another. In a moment, we will rejoice in rolling the Torah back to the beginning. Could we please mute again? Thank you. In a moment, we'll rejoice in rolling the Torah back to the beginning, albeit virtually. First, I'd like to set up our paraphrase of the 7 days of creation that we'll read as we loop around to the new beginning of our Torah reading cycle. Many of us are aware of Judaism's mystical telling of the creation story. In this, God's first attempt to create a world. In that attempt, God is too excited, too purposeful, too certain of their mission, and ends up exploding the vessels into which God pours creative energy, resulting in a shard-filled cosmos we're still partnering with God to clean up. The Creator's second, more mediated try took into account the magnitude of supernal power and a need to modify divine exuberance to allow for the limits this world can take. And that's the reading that we see in Bereshit. Still, by the time of Noah, God's master plan seems to have proven faulty, and we begin to see God compromising further, controlling less, answering the needs of created creatures more. After Noah's time, humans are allowed to eat meat. After the golden calf, Israel was offered a tangible holy site, if not a tangible holy object. We see the allness of being controlling less and responding to their creatures more. When Abraham Joshua Heschel inspires us to build our lives as works of art, I believe this is what he means: to mold and sculpt ourselves, adding and subtracting to our substance in sensitive response to our ongoing development, as well as in response to external circumstances. We can't know the whole of what is needed, or the whole of what will be from the outset, or even from some elevated perspective. Making art is not the step-by-step manifestation of an absolute plan. It's a responsive process, always in flux, always being adjusted, always attuned to forces beyond our control and to the desires that arise in the process itself. Matthew and I want to look this evening at the process of God's creation of the world as one of attunement, in which holding back the fullness of God's capacity to dictate and control, God felt their way into the world's unfolding with divine curiosity. We want to imagine God responding to what was and what was becoming in each mindful moment of the creation, pausing to evaluate, offering more in response to what seemed to be called for, or in other words, what called to materialize next, what called out to materialize next, as God built our universe as a work of art. My first great teacher, before Reb Zalman, was an abstract expressionist painter named Milton Resnick. It was Milton's way to approach a student canvas and notice a section of the image that the student seemed particularly attached to. He'd take a rag and wipe it out, saying, "Now what will you do?" This was not an easy pedagogy for young painters with delicate egos and desires to express themselves. But that was his point. Is creation about expressing a personal idea or predilection? Or is it about cultivating sensitivity to the given moment, in each moment, perceiving what's presented and what might be needed by a creation in process of formation? Surely there's a balance to be struck. We are emerging from the high and holy days into a world we don't understand, and into a time in which forces us to look at powers beyond ourselves, leaves us with a great deal of uncertainty. Let us consider the blessings of uncertainty, as not knowing demands an open-mindedness to thoughts and ideas and forms we might not have imagined on our own, constructions and solutions born of embracing needs beyond our own needs, beyond what feels obvious. In the expert's mind, there are few possibilities, but in the beginner's mind, there are many. So let's roll back to Breshit to encounter our Creator approaching the project of this world with beginner's mind. Let's have the video, Avril.
בתורתו, הוא יפתח ליבנו בתורתו, הוא יפתח ליבנו בתורתו. ישראל חי חי וקיים, דוד מלך 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 ישראל חי חי וקיים. He says, oh, I said, oh, I said too.
I see Jane said, we did it. We did. Simchat Torah. So let's unmute and rise into our telling of the creation story. The bracha is on page 79 in our Sidurim. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Habarach
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu ha'amim natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai. Avril, can we bring the spotlight to Matthew?
Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Ve'haaretz hayta tohu v'vohu, ve'choshech al pnei tehom, v'ruach Elohim merechefet. According to Rebbe Nachman, Moshe or Moses is da'at, knowledge. Moshe does not get to enter the Holy Land, but needs to stay back. Why? Because Rabbeinu tells us the Holy Land is emunah. Emunah usually means faith or trust, but here means a direct experience of divine presence. Our knowledge, our da'at, can't reach that. We only enter it when we let go of the idea that we know and open to the unknown. So Moshe can't enter the Holy Land. We let go of our da'at. We let go of our knowledge. And then what happens? Bereshit bara Elohim. Elohim, says Rav Chaim of Voloshin, is the divine name with which power is given up. With wisdom, creation happens in the giving up of power. Moshe lets go and steps back, gives up control, and divine presence and powers are empowered. Land below our feet, expanse above. Et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. But first, tohu v'vohu. Rashi says, tohu lashon tema v'shimamon, Tohu means wonder and astonishment. Vohu lashon rekut utsto. Vohu means empty space. In this empty space of wonder and bewilderment, the next moment happens from a wisdom beyond our knowledge. In the ayin, the nothing of the open hand, the nothingness in the palm, yesh, being, arises, and new things happen. When we are teetering over the abyss, al pnei tehom, this is where the voice of power hovers, uruach Elohim merachefet. From that emptiness and bewilderment, there is light, veyehi or, and darkness that reveals light, and the dance between them. We think we know what is happening, or what is likely to happen. We have worked so hard to get where we are. Our hands are clenched. And then the divine voice speaks to us like it did to Moshe. Stay behind on Mount Nebo. It is not what you planned. It is not what you wanted. What happens if we hear this invitation and give up control? We are given the world. It is a sevenfold creation, which in Jewish means complete. There is rising and falling, evening and morning. There are separations, and there is the breaking of separation. There is solidity, and there is flow. There is giving, and there is growing. There is multiplication, and there is repetition. There is replication. There is diversity, and there is home. Time finds meaning. And the one who gives up control finds that it is good. In the expanse of sky, birds soar. In the chaos of waters, fish spawn. On the solidity of land, creatures walk. It is not under control, but everything finds its place. And looking into what arises at some point on some sunny day, we see our own face looking back at us. Tselem. Reborn in a new shape, male and female, and neither and both, with the breath of divine giving flowing within us. Out of tohu vavohu, wonder and emptiness, a wisdom creates, and everything finds its place. Don't judge it good, don't judge it bad, or maybe judge it the good beyond good and bad. This time, walk forward into what has arisen, complicated, interconnected, and not in control. In the middle of the garden, beyond the flaming sword, right here is the tree of life.
Amen. Let's rise again for the bracha. Baruch atah
Adonai,
Eloheinu melech
melech
haolam,
haolam,
asher
asher
natan
natan
lanu
lanu
Torat
Torah
emet,
emet,
v'chayei
v'chayei
olam
olam
nata
natan
b'tocheinu.
b'tocheinu.
Baruch atah
Baruch atah
Adonai,
Adonai,
notein
notenat
haTorah.
Torah.
We conclude our evening with a few of the traditional supplications of the Simchat Torah liturgy, usually sung as we begin each hakafa, each circling in our dancing with the Torahs, and how I wish that we could be dancing with our Torahs. We call out to God in the names, in all the names of God our liturgy can think of. And we ask, Anenu, Anenu, answer us, save us, answer us, not just during the days of our teshuvah, but biyom korenu, whenever we call out to you. Anenu, Anenu, biyom korenu, Anenu, Anenu, biyom korenu. God of all living beings, one who knows our hearts, mighty Redeemer, answer us when we call out to you, Anenu biyom kar'enu. Speaker of justice, O God, arrayed in beauty, you who have loved us for so long, answer us when we call out to you, Anenu biyom kor'enu. Pure and upright one, helper of the poor, good and gracious God, answer us when we call out to you, Anenu biyom kor'enu. You who know our thoughts, God of power and splendor, clothed in justice, answer us when we call out to you, Anenu biyom kor'enu. Sovereign of the worlds and all time, brilliant one, lifter of the fallen, answer us when we call out to you, Anenu biyom kor'enu. Anenu, Anenu, biyom kor'enu. Anenu, Anenu, biyom kor'enu. Anenu, Anenu, biyom kor'enu. Anenu, Anenu, biyom kor'enu. Helper of the weak, Redeemer, Rock of the universe, answer us when we call out to you, Anenu biyom kor'enu. Holy, awesome God, compassionate and gracious God, our guardian, you guardian of our covenant, answer us when we call out to you, Anenu biyom kor'enu. Supporter of the innocent, holding us forever, perfect in all your ways. Answer us when we call out to you, Anenu biyom kor'enu. Show us just the right face of your divinity to sustain and inspire us in any mood, with any need, on any and every day that we call out to you. Anenu, Anenu, biyom kor'enu. 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 I want to thank Matthew for his collaboration, and I want to thank Nomi and Avril for serving as our Zoom shamashim. And I bid everyone a Chag Sameach, and may we be blessed to release control, and in that find blessing and creative power. We can unmute and greet one another.
Sameach.
Sameach,
everybody.
Yes, Sameach, everybody.
That was beautiful. Hi, everyone.
Yontif, everyone.
Yantiv,
Matthew and Hannah, nice to see
Thank
everybody.
you, Hannah.
Yantiv,
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Matthew and Hannah. Thank you.
Yantiv, Jay,
Beautiful.
Yantiv,
So before the
Devin,
Chag,
Giovanni.
for the holiday, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. לחיים.
May we celebrate in a much more raucous, unseemly way next year.
Next year.
Shana Hababa Bayit.
I have to tell you something. For the Yizkor, my mother died in 1986. She drank out of this glass and I never washed it. And I still have it with dried flowers in it.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh,
A little sentimental.
May her memory be for a blessing.
blessing.
May you hold her in your Sror Chachayim.
Mm.
Amen.
So thank you all and good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Rabbi Hannah.
Thank you.
Hi, Myrna.
Hi.
Jay. Hi, Jay.
Thank you, Nomi. Thank you, Avril. Hi, Jay.
Jay, that was a great evening. Where did she go? Oh, I want to tell her how great it was.
So Nomi, don't forget to leave your computer on for a little bit until the recording
Sure.
says that it's done.
No problem. But that was really beautiful, Hannah.
Yeah,
It was very special.
Thank you. It's,
Very
you know, it's hard to let go of the party, but
yeah.
I guess it's right for now. And
It feels very right, actually. It feels just perfectly right. Yeah.
I enjoyed the video. That was
it was sweet. It was fun.
It was great. That was really something.
And it got kind of like livelier as it went on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, hold down.
I like the highlights.
Yeah.
It was great.
Okay, here we are at the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. That was very fun.
All right. See you soon.
Well, have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
So I don't have to do anything. I just
keep the computer on until you get the notice. That
okay, thanks. I think it worked out really well.
I think so.
But I'll stop recording now, right?
You can stop recording.